Everything is better after a win. We watch Match of the Day again. We actually take an interest in other football. You want to watch your own highlights back. You listen to the post-match pressers. You want to talk about it all. It's the new Sunday supplement here on Sheffield United Way, but without the croissants. The Blades beat Wolves with an injury time winning goal from the captain for the second time in the Premier League at Bramall Lane. Caveat, Billy Sharp had gone off the last time we did this on 71 minutes for Zivkovic. Remember him. So Egan, when he did score that, was technically captain. Don't want anyone in the comments having a go at me for that. We have a panel joining us today of Blades and also Dave, who is a Wolves fan, who I'm actually going to bring in first. Dave, how are you feeling? Well, Dave is feeling...
Oh, mate, sorry, I was frozen there. You all right?
You were frozen. I think you're in shock. And I don't blame you, because what a shocking end. Just very quickly, your thoughts on the game, please, Dave.
Yeah, it was, a frustrating game for Wolves. I thought we did okay first half. I felt like we had decent spells, decent control of the game, created a couple of decent half chances. But even when you sort of watch the highlights, unfortunately, I watched it back on Match of the Day. All the action really was in that second half. So I think it was disappointed how we conceded the first goal. I think obviously when we got our late goal, a lot of Wolves fans frustrating probably would have taken the point with how poor that we were in the second half, especially away from home. But then obviously the penalty is the big talking point for me. Fabio Silva had an absolutely torrid 10, 15 minutes on that pitch, but I think that's really unfortunate for that to be given a penalty. But it's happened to us 3 or 4 times already this season, and two weekends on the bounce now that we've had a poor penalty decision go against us.
Dave, do you feel there is a genuine conspiracy against Wolves?
Many Wolves fans would like to think so. I think we're just really unlucky. I mean, to be fair, in both instances, I think Hwang last week against Newcastle should have cleared it earlier. Fabio probably should have done better with his defending before it even gets towards Baldock. But yeah, I think in both instances, they're very, very similar. I think on Match of the Day, they described it as deja vu, and it was that really. But we can't take anything away from, in terms of the Wolves' performance, we were really poor and probably didn't deserve to get anything out of the game either. It's just frustrating that we dropped points because of the decisions like that.
I mean, Match of the Day accused George Baldock of diving. I think if we look back at it, he tried to get back up. He tried to keep playing. I'm sure at the time you probably thought he is diving, although I'll tell you now, George isn't that type of player. But I mean, Dave, is the feeling around Fabio Silva, who you mentioned, who I believe you signed for £35 million, which kind of puts Ryan Brewster in perspective, in tears at the end. He was meant to be a superstar. Anyone who plays, as you do, Football Manager, he's one of these players that in Football Manager was like a wonder kid. And I'm sure when you signed him, lots of excitement around him. It's just not worked for him at all.
No, and I think unfortunately the thing with Fabio is he was sort of signed, it was around COVID as well, he signed for that fee. And we still had Raul Jimenez at the time. He was almost going to be an understudy to Raul and sort of slow, give him minutes here and there, get him slowly used to English football. And then just the weeks after Raul Jimenez had that injury and Wolves were left, that they had to chuck Fabio Silva straight in at the deep end. So he wasn't ready. So from day one, he had critics and people saying, how is this guy worth that amount of money? And just really, really struggled. Then he had 2 loan moves out last year to Belgium and Holland, and he did really well, scored a good amount of goals. And Wolves fans are excited to welcome him back this season, but he's not really had a chance. He's coming on 5-10 minute cameos, but unfortunately, the cameos are similar to what we saw yesterday, where first thing he does is elbow someone in the back and picks up a booking, and then obviously he's unfortunately, given away a penalty. So I think in January, I think there's definitely a conversation to be had, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Wolves move it on, whether it be another loan move or whether it be a permanent deal. But yeah, Wolves fans are starting to get frustrated with him, really. But I do feel for him. Obviously, you see him get upset at the end because I think as soon as he walked in Wolverhampton, he had critics, he had people on his back, and I think he knows struggles to get a chance in the team, and then when he does get one, that's what happens.
I'm going to bring in a couple of Blades, Dave. We've heard your thoughts. Ollie's actually very excited to speak to you, so I'll let him do that.
Hiya, Dave. You all right? Yeah, just a big fan. I've followed some of your Football Manager content. Obviously, 5-star potential pod as well when you're on there. So, I was quite excited.
I love that. Thank you, man.
Oh, this is a beautiful moment. I might leave. What I will do is I will say, Ollie, just while we've got Dave here, you've heard his thoughts on that. I want you to, because let's try and do it chronologically. Ollie, as briefly as you can, talk me through that first half and how you felt at halftime.
That first half were a struggle of a watch, wasn't it? I have to admit, I can go back through my messages and you'll see plenty that say that first half, I felt as though we weren't at it at all. We weren't able to keep the ball. I think the front two that we were playing, we just had no way of getting out. It seemed to be long balls forward, and they were really easily dealt with by that sort of Wolves back line. And to be honest, I thought we were lucky to be going in at 0-0. I think that huge chance that Hwang had, where it then falls to Ait Nouri and he can't respond in time, that felt like a real let-off. And to be honest, I really was concerned. I thought we were on for another defeat, another really disappointing performance. And yeah, I was very much writing us off when we got to that sort of 45-minute mark, because we just offered nothing, and really, it was a shocker.
Yeah, I think if it falls to anyone other than Ait Nouri, sticks a foot out, might be able to turn that one in after it's
if he gets out of the way, just leaves it for Kolasinac at the back.
Absolutely. And Dave, were you thinking the exact opposite at halftime? Because first half, let's be honest, possession, certainly, Wolves controlled it.
Yeah, I mean, we had the chances. I think, like I said earlier, the Cunha chance where Fotheringham tipped it over the bar, that chance as well. I said on our preview, away games in the Premier League are never easy, especially against teams such as Sheffield United, because teams haven't, it's not like you've rolled over for teams at Bramall Lane. You've made life difficult for them. So I knew the next 45, there was going to be some sort of reaction. Obviously, I think we massively missed Neto, who's been a massive part of how we've played so far this season. And I like Sasha Kalajdzic, but it just doesn't. I think we need to try and figure out a way to actually use him in playing, because I think at times you've just sat too deep. And for a guy at 6'7", you want to be whipping the ball into the area, and I don't think we saw that enough yesterday, to be honest. So I knew there was going to be a reaction in the second half, but I was hoping Wolves try and get an early second half goal, and then I would have been confident that we could sit on that. But Sheffield United made it very, very difficult for us, and I think in that, mainly that first sort of 20 minutes of the second half, Wolves couldn't get out of their own half, and Sheffield United did really well in that.
You might be expecting lots of Yorkshire accents on this, but I'm going to bring in someone else who's going to have a similar accent to Dave. But Jono is a Blades. Jono, I want your thoughts on the formation. I mean, we know that Baldock came back in. What do you think Sheffield United were playing, certainly in that first half?
We've had nearly 24 hours to think about it. I still don't really know. It seemed to, I think it was a 5 at the back. But as soon as we had the ball, I was surprised how forward Bogle and Thomas were.
Yeah.
So I think it changed in and out of possession. But to ask me straight out what it was, I couldn't really tell you. It was a bit all over the place.
It was. Dave, we thought that Wolves would have a back three. I mean, Gary O'Neill, not as wedded to that perhaps as Nuno was. But what was your thoughts? Did you look at that and think they've matched up here? And at times it looked like Wolves were actually playing a slightly different formation. What did you think?
Yeah, I think sort of we started with a back four this season and sort of struggled a little bit, and Gary O'Neill switched to the back five against Man City, and it's just sort of worked from there. To be fair, we've been unbeaten since that game, obviously up until yesterday. But yeah, I think again, I spoke to Nick on the preview, and he was sort of talking about the shape and so on, and I think he said you were having issues with injuries and so on, and it would have been interesting to see what the formation was. But I think, again, in terms of shape, Wolves can switch shape during the game as well. But whatever Sheffield United did, it worked, obviously. And I think they made it very, very difficult. And I think Wolves struggled to create clear-cut opportunities other than the Ait Nouri and Cunha ones that we mentioned. I really can't think of many chances that we created. And I think that was credit to how well Sheffield United were organised and set up.
Yeah, we blocked the crosses. Wes didn't have any meaningful saves really to make in that first half. There were shots on target. Dave, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about your manager, Gary O'Neill? I thought before the game he spoke very well, less so afterwards. What do you generally think of him?
He's got a lot more fans on side now, and I think it's changed very, very quickly. We go back to sort of when we dropped points against Luton, and then that same week we then were 2-0 up against Ipswich and lost out in the Cup. There were a lot of fans on his back and thinking, like, what are we doing? What's going on? And then 3 days later, he goes and beats Man City at Molineux, and we go on unbeaten for another 4 games. So I think he's got a lot more fans on his side now. But obviously, it's typical Wolves. We know, and this isn't any disrespect to Sheffield United, we know going into, especially into away games against teams that are struggling, it's typical Wolves that we will drop points, whether that's a loss or a draw. And it'll be typical Wolves that we play Spurs next week at Molineux, and we go and beat them. So it's early days, but I think like I said, he's starting to get fans on side. I think he's been unlucky with obviously the officiating and so on, but it's his job really to make sure that we don't have to keep relying on one or two crap decisions, and we're making sure the football does the talking and we're getting the results that way.
Final question for you, Dave, then I'll let you enjoy your Sunday. Where are Wolverhampton Wanderers finishing in the Premier League, in your opinion, this season?
I would go with a 12th placed finish for Wolves this season. And I think considering the circumstances, considering the circumstances from the summer with Lopetegui and Gary O'Neill being chucked under the bus, I think a lot of people, including Wolves fans, would have had us to go down. So, I would more than take a 12th place finish, I think.
Ollie, do you want to say that Dave's great and comment on his lovely hair?
Yeah, Dave, you're awesome. Thank you very much for coming and joining us today. I know we all really appreciate it, but yeah, I'm looking forward to whenever you're doing more Football Manager stuff, just get it out on Twitter and I'll be there.
Legend, mate. Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Dave. All the very best. Always appreciate a Wolves fan joining us, but we're going to have Blades now and we're going to continue talking about this game. For the first time, welcoming Callum to Sheffield United's way. Callum, how are you today?
I think the same as all of you boys. It feels much better. Every Sunday will feel much better with 3 points and a win for sure. But yeah, Ollie said before the game he's a little bit throaty. I think majority of Blade fans will be a little bit hoarse this morning for sure.
Absolutely. Let's not talk about horses at the moment. Callum, that Archer goal, his first shot on target in 200 Premier League minutes, some strike.
Yeah, I think obviously Archer over the last couple of weeks, I think he's probably been subjected to the similar criticism that Brewster's had. Maybe over the last couple of years, obviously injuries aside, but that is the type of thing that we've brought him in for. When I thought he was going to go straight through and into the box and finish it, but obviously he's the defender's caught up to him and he's absolutely rifled that in. From just outside the box, unbelievable strike. I think that obviously the keeper was backtracking a little bit, so he's obviously not been maybe able to set his feet up, and he's hit it exactly at the right time, and unbelievable strike.
Yeah, I mean, wonderful strike that I'm sure Travelling Blade was celebrating in your customary fashion of just sort of yelling, so it's completely inaudible. Travelling, welcome back. How, pray tell, are you, good sir?
I'm shattered, celebrating long into the night. Went to the beer engine and the clubhouse after. Then met another meeting in Sheffield. So yeah, it's a slow start this morning. Tired, but yeah, finally we've won, because I think I think mentally for the fans and the players, just that I can breathe a big sigh of relief. The fact that we finally got it over the line. That we've actually won. I remember coming into this game thinking I'd be very, very happy with a draw. However, when Wolves equalised, not so much. But the fact that we've actually gone on to win as well, and also I think not obviously the greatest performance ever, but definitely an improvement. And the fact that I think one of my criticisms over the last few weeks or even for this season is that once we've hit about the 60th minute or onwards, we seem to have really dropped off and just ran out of steam. We've looked tired. We've looked mentally wasted. Whereas this game, we actually kicked on from the 60th minute onwards. Obviously we still afforded Wolves a bit of space. We stood off them a bit as well. Again, once again, we gave them far too much space for their shot. That's why I had time to turn. But the fact that we kept in it till the end, and went on to win, albeit through a penalty, but we're still battling on at the end in order to get the penalty awarded. We had the 2 VAR checks that didn't go our way. I thought this one were going to get overturned as well, to be fair. But the fact that I think now we can sort of, obviously we've still got a hell of a lot of work to do, but it was very reassuring, and we can relieving that we've actually got a win now. Obviously, I know with the last relegation season, it wasn't until February, was it, against Newcastle, or late January? So yeah, obviously it's the start of November, but it feels much early to get that first win. So it gives us something to build on now, and I think for the players' mentality, that will be a big weight shifted off their shoulders.
I want to talk about mentality. Ollie, Ryan Brewster, it's going to be a tough time mentally, potentially, for him. He got injured in this game. He was fouled on 44 minutes by Totti. Not that one. The referee, who we'll get onto later, not interested in giving what I thought was a clear foul. And Ryan was really angered by that. He was frustrated, and he injured himself by getting frustrated at the lack of decision, challenging Totti really hard at the byline, went down for quite some time and had to be replaced by McAtee. Ollie, your thoughts on just all of that moment and Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's 24 hours later now, and you very much wish all the best to Ryan. He's had such a terrible time with his injuries that you just want to see him be healthy, be fit, get a consistent run of games in him, because it's been so long that that's dragged on. And I think mentally it must be so tough for him. It was great to see him getting involved in the celebrations, both at full time, but you also see him running in to celebrate that second goal as well. So it is good. It looks as though it's maybe not too serious an injury that he's picked up. So that is really positive. But there is another side to this one, of course, and that is that if we are honest with ourselves, I do think the sub we made helped us. I think if we look at that game, McAtee's impact in the second half was absolutely huge. I think he really gave us the opportunity to get on the ball and give us some impetus going forward. He was causing problems for their back line. You know, I know it's a lucky deflection, but he makes that first goal by being tenacious, by skipping round Dawson. And so I do think that ultimately it really benefited us having been forced in to make that substitution. I think it gave us, we talked a little bit about the formation, about what system was Sheffield United playing. Well, we had a lot of clarity on that in the second half. You know, we'd gone from having two up front who were ineffective to having an extra man in midfield who gave us more control of the ball. And so I think what it reflects for me is that long term, while Evan McBurn is not fit, we need to probably be packing midfield and playing Archer up front on his own. And then we just wish all the best to Ryan. We hope that he gets fit. But to be honest, I don't particularly want to see him in the starting lineup anytime soon.
So, Jono, I'd like you to give me your thoughts on that second half, from the way we came out of the blocks to the whole performance. Imagine you're speaking to people that didn't see the game.
It was just so different and did not see it coming. I think we've already touched on how bad that first half was. It just complete turnaround. We seem to be able to put passes together, get the ball up the pitch. I wouldn't say the ball necessarily stuck at the top of the pitch, but we were just able to get it further forward. And I think throughout that second half, we were the better team. Wolves did not test us much in the second half. So, yeah, we controlled it, deserved to go one up. And we've already touched on the finish. It was a brilliant goal. I was worried that Archer had too long. But as Callum said, hit it right at the right time. And then, carried on. We did let Wolves into it slightly. I think probably some nerves came into that. I think we were unlucky to concede in the way we did. I think if the referee stops the game when he should, then we make a sub. Hamish, it'll be Osborne at the time. We've got an extra man in midfield to maybe cut out that move. But, once it went to 1-1, I was thinking there's probably only one team that's going to go and do that. And I thought Wolves, if anyone's going to get a win, it would be them, based on recent weeks and probably edge dropping. But again, we carried on pushing. Travelling touched on a couple of VAR checks late on, and then obviously the third one went our way. So I think it was a deserved win. And like I said, the performance second half was so much different than the first, but it gives us something to build on. And more performances like that will be we'll be getting there. We'll be closer to where we need to be.
Yeah, they'll be welcome. Second half performance, exactly what you want to see. Sheffield United fans always want that, just giving your all. Travelling, what did you make of the performance from the referee, Robert Jones? I think it might be fair to say there'll be Wolves fans and Sheffield United fans that have some thoughts on him, but what were yours?
I remember in the first half being absolutely irate at him. Just the seemingly just... I think in the second half, I wasn't as annoyed at him. I think there was still a few shouts from United fans for fouls here and there, but I think I was sort of thinking, well, that probably was a foul. But I remember in the first half being like tearing my vocal cords out, just calling him every name under the sun. And I've not been that angry at refs this year. I think I've just been more annoyed at United. But yeah, very, very annoyed with him in the first half, definitely. I think the sort of touching on the penalty, I think from my sort of watching it live, I didn't really think too much to it. I thought it was a bit soft. Sort of watched it back on my footage, zoomed in, slowed down, and thought looks a bit soft that. But then when you watch it from the other angle, sort of where the ref stood, you can see the contact. And I think it's sort of strange because he seems to go down a bit soft, but then does get back up. Maybe it was just a bit of a guilty conscience from George, thinking, "Oh, best try and carry on." Because, but obviously won the penalty. But yeah, very, very. I can't call out actual decisions like off the top of my head, but I just remember being apoplectic with rage. Is that a word? Who knows? In the first half,
Yeah, I use it all the time.
Yeah,
that's probably where you heard it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can think of a couple. There was Hamer. He gave a foul. I mean, Ollie, you remember these, right? You don't need me to relay them. Go on. You took me through the two that I think Travelling's referring to that are particularly.
I mean, in particular, it's that one in the first half, isn't it? When he's not even looking, when he's not looking at the ball, he's got his back to what's actually happening in the game. He turns around with their player on the floor and he just goes, "Oh, it must be a free kick to Wolves." And it made no sense that he clearly wasn't looking. And it was just those kind of moments that were so frustrating. But rather than, I know there's another one that you want to pick out, Hal, but the more egregious one for me is what Jono touched on with the equalising goal for Wolves. So in the first half, there was a moment where United take a quick throw in. Wolves have got a player down. He says, no, stop. Let's let the Wolves player get back up. Let's make sure he's okay. So then second half, United are winning, 88th minute. Hamer's down. They take a quick throw in. He makes Hamer get up. The ball goes out again, and Hamer says, "Ref, I'm going down. I need to have some treatment. I need a sub." And the ref says, no, get up. We're playing on. Wolves score while Hamer is still sort of saying, "Ref, I need to go down. I'm injured." That is pathetic refereeing. That made me so angry. And to be honest, I actually think the ref probably realised what he'd done in that moment, because you sort of saw him afterwards. I think a United player got booked for their arguments against it. I think Hecky maybe did as well. But you could see the ref kind of thinking, I should have let him go down here. And nobody's touched on it because obviously I watch Match of the Day and they all focus on the penalty, and you've got Danny Murphy throwing out nonsense statements like, "Oh, it's definitely a dive." Shut up, Danny. He's got no idea what he's talking about. He didn't like us last time with the Prem. He clearly doesn't like us now. But it wasn't a dive. George gets up to try and play on. There's contact there so you can see where he goes down. I'm not saying it's definitely a pen, but throwing out stupid statements like they do on Match of the Day just makes you really, really mad. And they don't reference any of the other things that the ref's done through the game. There was no reference to the Harmer incident that very clearly was a mistake that everybody recognised. So he did make me a bit mad, if I'm being honest, Hal. But by the end of it, it turned out that I just didn't care because we'd won a game of football and it can do what he wants for me as long as we win it. And
he'd been pretty poor for us before. He refereed our away game at Bournemouth, you might recall, and gave that penalty, which I don't even think was in the box. So
no, it weren't.
Bizarre. But anyway, we wish him well. So Callum, I want your thoughts on how you feel, because it's the discussion point that everyone's been having. We don't like to have it. Ollie did a fantastic video on it, but it's that thing. If everyone's talking about it, we can't be the last channel to discuss it. Paul Heckingbottom. Callum, how do you feel about him?
I'm gonna try and do, be devil's advocate. I can understand where Blaze fans are coming from completely with, tactic decisions and substitutions and things like that. Right now, I just don't see who we're going to attract, to bring in another manager who is going to turn this team around in ways that I personally feel Hecky can as well. I think Jono's touched on the second half performance yesterday. For me, a lot of that was down to the fact that these players want to play for Hecky, and they feel. Possibly, I found Ollie Norwood's interview after Arsenal quite interesting. Last week there's 11 players on the pitch. As much as I love the Messiah that is Chris Wilder, I personally see that as a bit of a not completely a backward step, but a sideways step. And I know obviously he's been mentioned quite a lot over the last couple of weeks. I think with the second half yesterday, again, Jono's touched on that, is how we can play when we know, especially, I know it's not under the lights technically, but evening game, at Bramall Lane. personally feel as well, yesterday that was probably one of the best the crowd has been all season. Obviously, we got behind them more and more as the game went on. Probably galvanised by the performance of the referee, as we've touched on as well. But for me, I think it would have been very harsh to sack Hecky after Manchester United, which was a good performance in many ways. Obviously, when McBurney went off after 60 minutes, the game completely changed. But I think it would have been extremely harsh to sack Hecky last week on the back of losing to Arsenal, albeit 5-0. To sack a manager after that would have been extremely harsh. I always felt as though he was going to have the Wolves game, and obviously, we've come away with 3 points. I think it's now, for me, it's about how we move forward from this. Tough game away at Brighton next week. If we go there, then they're not on a particularly good run at the moment, Brighton, but I think it's the reaction, how we go on from here and press forward. And for me, I'd keep Hecky in. I like how he brings the youth through, and obviously the players want to play for him. And for me, as I've said already, I think it would have been extremely harsh to sack him on the back of losing to Man United and Arsenal. And obviously we've got the 3 points, which that was, I think, that first hurdle, if you like. We've got over that now. So I'm of the opinion of I don't, apart from Wilder, I don't really see us being able to bring in anyone of not caliber. But I mean, for me personally, if we are thinking about the future and things like that, which is obviously what the board and the Prince have said quite a lot, in recent times, it's about always thinking about the future. For me, you want to go out and get someone like Ipswich have found in McKenna, and I think I don't think we'd have a chance of attracting him to United now. My friend from university, who's an Ipswich fan, will absolutely hate me for suggesting that. But that is the type of manager that I think you want to go out and. But they're few and far between, and I think there's a short list, obviously, a couple of weeks ago of three people. Wilder was obviously the one mentioned, but I'd be interested to see who that apparent short list was, because obviously if it's someone like, just to pick a name out, Sam Allardyce and someone else like that absolutely terrifies me. It really does, because I don't think that kind of appointment is thinking about the future, and thinking, well, I'd just give it a Hecky till the end of the season, if I'm honest, and just see where we end up. And then if you don't think it's right, moving forward, then Blades. A lot of Blades fans will call me naive, but I don't see how we can make a forward step with bringing in another manager at this stage. And as I've said, I think Wilder, it's not a backward step, but a sideways step, and I just don't think that's the right. It's about galvanizing the squad into it and getting a reaction, and we had that yesterday in the second 45, as Jono's touched on.
We really did. Travelling, I'm going to ask you this question. So, as Callum's just mentioned there, that second half, to you, does it prove the players are still with the manager?
I think it's definitely reassuring, because I think, like, the obviously touched on the Arsenal, Ollie Norwood's Arsenal interview, and the bit I saw that he just looked broken, and I think I think the Arsenal game last week just looked like they'd completely, in the second half at least. Obviously, there's the gap in quality, admittedly, but just looked like they'd given up. Like there's not being as good as your opposition, but then there's like just sort of down in tools. But I think perhaps one of the reasons maybe why they've looked at times why they might not be playing for Hecky is just because I think they've been just mentally shot to bits, just going through this every week, losing every week. Just being miles off the mark every week, and feeling, I guess, a bit guilty and responsible for it all, putting the fans through it. But so I think maybe that's why I think they've maybe looked like there's been a suggestion that they haven't been playing for Hecky. But now that we've got this win, we really need to like capitalize on this, use it as a springboard. Obviously now the players have got a bit more self-belief. It's not we've got that monkey off us back of the first win. They're not going into games thinking, "God, we still haven't won." I know we've still got a ton of work to do to try and stay in this league, and to obviously win you've still got to, we've got to still that just because you win one game doesn't mean you're going to be all right and get points from everything else. But yeah, I think obviously they want to. Clearly, like from yesterday, they kept going till the end. They want to play for Hecky. There've been a lot of them now. I mean, he's been here for like quite a while now, and he's had a good couple of seasons, so it's not like he's a new manager. So most of them, they'll know him really well. He always comes across well. Obviously, people can have a different persona actually when they're at work other than just that actual interview. But yeah, I think they want to play not just for Hecky, but for the club as well. Like you could see the celebrations at the end. They want to do it. They're playing for the badge on the shirt. They're playing for the fans. They're playing for the club, and amongst all that, they're playing for Hecky. So yeah, it was reassuring, and I think now that we've got that win, they can sort of almost relax. Might be the wrong word, but sort of they've got that off the back, and they probably look like they're giving I think it'll boost their mental health. Obviously, still got a couple of injuries with that, but it'll. They'll go into games with a lot more belief and confidence now, so there'll be less cause for concern in whether they're playing for Hecky or not.
I want to talk about man of the match. Jono, I would love to hear your man of the match.
I thought Hamer had a very good game. I thought he did quite good in the middle. Thomas impressed me at left back. Second half, maybe more than first. Maybe Hamer for me. Thought that was more what we wanted to see from him. Yeah, maybe give it to Hamer.
Travelling, your man of the match?
I'll go with McAtee. I thought he changed the game when he came on. We're on about how poor the first half, and then he came on, obviously through an injury. Came on, got the assist, and just once again, sort of, he seemed to be just really trying to create everything. And I think I was in the pub after, someone likened him a bit to Duffy, just sort of trying to link that link between midfield and attack, and just darting around the box, trying to cut in here and there. And yeah, I thought he was our creative spark, our main attacking threat, and changed the game for us when he came on.
Callum, does McAtee have to start every game from here on in your opinion?
Well, I think that second 45 obviously proved he's always got to be within a shout, hasn't he? Obviously, he's still a young lad. I think we do have to protect him, in certain games. I think he's probably taken, like Travelling's touched on, he's probably taken over that creative spot from Ndiaye, from last year. In terms of players, opposition teams will absolutely just put two men on him because he can be dangerous, at most times. I did think he changed the game, obviously, when he came on in the second half, but I think we do have to give a mention to Mr. George Baldock. That guy, he's another one of those players that just epitomises, what it is to put on that shirt. But for me, I did like that kind of front three yesterday in the second half, and it gives us that extra body in midfield, and I think McAtee will thrive in that, especially when you've got obviously Hamer on the other side and Archer. And I think for Archer, having those two players behind him, McAtee and Hamer, it's about giving him that type of service, and I think obviously that that second 45, prove that.
It was going so well with Callum. Go on, Callum, you're back. What were you saying?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I don't know where that went off. Just with McAtee, I think obviously that that front three yesterday in the second 45, it was that is the type of service that Archer or a player of that ilk needs. And I think for sure he's going to be McAtee. He's going to be one of those players that can. If we are to stay up, because obviously as the other lads have touched on, we've got a lot of work to do. But yeah, for me, McAtee he's a difference maker, isn't he? And as we've all said, that second 45 proved that.
Yeah, George Baldock, I will just say to you, Filimu, Efhadisto Poli, Carlos Salvador Kiriako. Ollie, what about you for your man of the match?
Maka. Yeah, I think it's got to be McAtee. I do think that somebody in our comments has called out a very, very worthy shout out in Jack Robinson. I think he's probably been our player of the season so far. I think he's been brilliant. I don't think, generally speaking, I think we came in with a lot of concerns. We thought that in big games, we'd seen him have a few shockers last season, particularly against Burnley. But no, I thought he's been outstanding. But for me, it was McAtee yesterday. I thought he changed the game. Just coming to that point, I think he does have to start while McBurney's not fit. I think when McBurney's fit, it's a really difficult decision to look at what that midfield looks like. I think the reason Harmer was so much better yesterday is that he was playing in a more natural position for him. He was allowed to go further forward. He was at the point of a 3 rather than being pulled deeper to play alongside Vinny Souza. And so I do think for now, while McBurney's out, you've got to have McAtee in that team, and it's Archer up front on his own with Hamer and McAtee behind him. But once McBurney's fit, I think that's a very different question to try and answer.
All right, I want to ask this. Jono, give me your prediction for Brighton and Hove Albion, who, interestingly, are away to Ajax on Thursday night, which means the game is on a Sunday.
I think part of it will depend on how that Thursday night goes, but I think we've already touched on that they're not in the best of form at the moment. I guess it depends what do we see more of the first half or second half from us during that game. So do I think we can go there and get a point? Maybe. If you offer that now, I'd take that. But 90 minutes in Ajax for Brighton before Sunday, But I'd take a point now if you offered it. And if we play like we did second half, I could see us getting that.
I mean, 4 points from those two fixtures, you'd be really happy
It'd be brilliant
with that.
Going into the international break with that, knowing that we've then got Bournemouth and Burnley to come afterwards. Yeah, if we can get a point from that, it puts us in a great position before those two. So, yeah, let's say we'll get a point.
Travelling, Burnley on 4 points, Blades on 4 points. Sheffield United have had the most injuries in the entire league and a harder run of fixtures, arguably. So why is all the talk about how dreadful and how poor Sheffield United are and not about Burnley?
Well, maybe it'll shift now, I guess, because now we've leveled them on points. I think like Luton are on 5. I think a couple of reasons. I think because obviously, I don't know I've not watched Match of the Day, not seen what the media's been saying after yesterday's result. I take it Burnley, did they lose yesterday as well? But maybe now the focus will shift. Obviously, because we've been like winless, but now the fact we've got that, we've sorted that. Maybe now the focus will shift onto them as well. I do think as well, Burnley a bit more of the media's darlings. They had was it Sky that did a documentary on them, or someone did a documentary on them last season. It's Vincent Kompany's Burnley. So whereas we're not as an attractive club as that, we've suffered with that before. I think where we've other clubs have had all the attention, all the focus, and we've sort of been either forgotten about or been talked about in a far too negative sense. But hopefully now the fact we've got the win sorted, we're no longer winless. Perhaps it will shift onto now Burnley are as bad as Sheffield United.
Yeah, we'll take that. Yes, Burnley lost at home 2-0 to Crystal Palace. Not that we can throw any stones losing at home to Crystal Palace, but I don't think we can really count our Crystal Palace defeat. A lot of mitigating circumstances. So, are we staying up? Ollie?
Oh, that's the question. It's mean. It's mean, to be honest with you, Hal. I still don't think we will stay up, no, but I think we will hopefully do it in a much more respectable manner than maybe we were worrying about before yesterday's game. I do think that'll give us some impetus. I do think that we can go. I think Brighton haven't won in the league since about mid-September, so it is a long time for them. So we can go there, get a point. If we can then back that up against Burnley and Bournemouth, maybe that changes the picture. But for now, I do still think that probably us, Burnley, Luton do look like the 3 most likely to go.
Travelling, do you agree with what Ollie's just said?
I think overall, I think with the injuries, we've got, because essentially we've got these players now, and that's it until you start dipping into like the likes of Andre Brooks and Biarbu coming in. So these players have got to play pretty much every game here on out without getting injured. Obviously, Brewster injured yesterday. Not that he's had the most impact, but what can you do when you're on the bet when you're injured? But I think mainly because of the injuries, I think, and just the physical demands of the Prem, we're still going to come up short, I think. Obviously, hopefully we get some players back soon. There's always January, but I can't see us really spending that much or doing that much in January if the summer's anything to go off. So I think overall we'll still fall short, mainly not for the want of trying. I think I agree with Ollie that I think now it'd be a more respectable relegation if we can sort of celebrate that. But I think just the physical demands, the injuries will just get the better of us and we'll still fall short.
Callum, your thoughts on how it finishes at the end of the season?
I think the lads have hit the nail on the head, really. Yeah, I don't think it matters where we finish as long as it's 17th. That for us, that's going to be considering the circumstances that we've had, during the summer and like you obviously touched on how the Crystal Palace game, we couldn't really count the first kind of like 3 games because of the situation we found ourselves in. So it almost feels as though we've started later than other teams. Travelling's touched on it. The injuries, it's the most injuries in the league. I think the next 3 games are pretty massive. I mean, obviously Brighton, I really agree with the I'd take a point now. It's exactly the type of game that kind of Brighton fans will be thinking that is the type of game where we can get our season back on track. We're playing Sheffield United at home. We'll see how obviously Ajax goes. There's a lot of travelling involved with the European games, so who knows? Jono's touched on that. Who knows? But I think obviously we've got then it's Bournemouth and Burnley both at home, isn't it? After that, so I think the next 3 games will. Ollie said obviously it's always mean to judge, especially after our first win, and I do agree with that. But if we finish 17th come May and it's by 1 goal difference or 1 point, I don't care. But it's going to be a tough long season, isn't it? Irregardless of whatever else happens. So I'm gonna say again. I think we likely it's out of the teams that have come up. We're all likely to probably go back down. I mean, obviously, a lot of people had Burnley finishing in Europe, so that's. I think they've been. Now did I? But I think obviously it's Vincent Kompany, and I think Luton have probably, obviously they're on 5 points now, but they've got away with criticism because it is Luton, and they have a clear mantra on how they play and how they run the club. So I think we've probably been subjected to the criticism more than those 2 teams because of it's us and it's Sheffield United. But it's going to be a long, hard season, and if we make a fighting chance like we did, if we give ourselves a fighting chance like we did in the second 45 yesterday, then that's all we can ask.
I'd love a fully fit squad. I'd love that.
Yeah.
I think we'd have a real chance. Jono, obviously finishing with more points than Derby County's record low is a priority for some. Staying up, a priority for all. Jono, final thoughts then from you. How do you see it going by the time we're speaking at the end of the season?
I think we can get more points than Derby, and I think that has to be the first thing to aim for. Like I said, the next few games will tell us more, but at this moment in time, no. I've taken everything, especially that Ollie and Travelling said with the injuries and all of that. It's a massive ask. But if we are going to do it, then these 3 games coming up are the sort of ones that we have to target. If we can get 6-7 points out of them, the picture changes. But as of this moment in time, no. I think we'll beat Derby's record. I think we will get over that line. After that, we'll get some more points, but I think it's a big ask to stay up.
I want to thank all of the guests for joining us today. Looking back on the first win of the season for Sheffield United, it has been really insightful, as always. Really enjoy these. It is your new Sunday supplement. We might have to introduce croissants, orange juice at some point. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for watching and or listening. Cheers.